Wow, thank you, Sean. That was beautiful. And just to dovetail on that, when you judge another, you do not define them, you define yourself. Wayne Dyer. So let's not judge others. We've been talking all month long about keeping it real. It's been a great subject because it has so many different dimensions when we are keeping it real. When we're being our authentic self, keeping it real, our hearts are open and we're full of joy. And when we're not keeping it so real, well, that's another story. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that duality. I would like to know before I start if there's any veterans in the room. Thank you for serving. Thank you for serving. And I know it's not Veterans Day. I know it's Memorial Day. But when I looked up the little bit about Memorial Day, celebrating those who have passed by serving our country, I thought about, what about those that were willing to vote and stand up to say, I'll go, with the possibility of running the risk of not making it through for our country. So I thank you for being a superhero in your form. Your name? Dave, thank you. You see, we're all superheroes sitting in this room in different forms. Most of us don't recognize our greatness as a superhero. And I sat with how I receive information. Little sentences just zoom by my mind. And the thing that came to me for the title of my talk was Superman. Are you in or out of the phone booth? Just sit with that for a minute, because everyone's going to have their own little knee-jerk reaction to that, or not. And I'd like to thank my mother, Alyssa, for recognizing her children as superheroes within their own life and encouraging us to be our own superhero every day. Now, what we do with that is another story, because we can choose to not be that superhero, which is where I looked at Superman. Now, if you look at Superman, I sort of had this hit about it. You know, when I was growing up, Superman, or the version of it was, there was this little geeky dude named Clark Kent. You know, he was a plain average little Joe working hard, and, you know, he wasn't all of that, or at least that's how he presented. So, of course, a gal like Lois Lane wouldn't necessarily want to be connecting to him. He was just an average dude. Yet he had this alternate persona, Superman, where he stepped into the phone booth, changed up his gear, and became who he really is. He became who he really is, his magnificent, bright light. But some part of him felt he couldn't do that as Clark Kent. He had to have this other beingness. And so when I looked at that story, I thought, I wonder if the original people that created this character of Superman, did they have this intention of this stepping into your bigger power kind of a sense? Or was that just my metaphysical spin on it? So I did a little bit of research on Superman. And this is what I came up with. So Superman, or the idea of Superman, was created in 1933 by two lovely young men by the name of Joe Shuster and Jerry Siegel. Nice little Jewish boys from Cleveland, Ohio. Yeah, it makes me happy to say Superman was a Jew. Of course it does. Those of you that know me would know that's a little part of my own personal story. So the more I talk about this, you're going to say, is she just talking about herself again? Maybe so, because that's how I show up as my authentic self, talking about spins about my life and how it serves all of us, because we're all connected. So these were two little guys, they were kind of like scrawny, bookwormy, nerdy dudes that had darker hair and more olive skin. So they didn't show up as a lot of the other guys that were more muscle-bound and had blue eyes and blonde hair. And so let me just say that they got bullied a lot. They got beat up a lot. And that's where Superman came from. They got tired of being bullied, and so because they were more geeky dudes, they decided they'd create a superhero so that they could channel the energy of frustration into something positive. But they started out the first version of it as villainous character who was going to go out there and do bad things to all these people that were doing bad things to them. But then they thought, nah, if I'm going to have a superhero, let it be somebody who stood up for some form of justice. So, I'm going to read you a little tiny bit of information. This is also fun. Now, we know, many of us that are a little older, so as Superman changes in its more current day, those of us that are older know that Superman came from the planet Krypton. His Krypton name was Kal-El, which means the voice of God in Hebrew. Just be with that for a moment. The voice of God. Superman, the voice of God. Feel like any part of you's kind of opening up and tingling a little bit? Whether your gender is Superman or Superwoman, you are the voice of God in your heroic, supersonic state. Whether you choose to step in and out of a phone booth on a daily basis throughout the day to change up to be that, I don't know, maybe you do, maybe you don't. But what I loved about this was that because these guys were trying to assimilate and be more American and fit in, because they just really didn't look like the guys that were in their area, they created something. And what it actually says is Superman took the role of a social activist, fighting the crooked businessman, the politician, and just trying to destroy things that were evil to other people. And Superman later became a character on a radio as well as the comic book. And one of the things I found interesting, the later Superman radio programs, the character continued to take on issues such as tackling the Ku Klux Klan in the 1946 broadcast, as well as combating anti-Semitism and veteran discrimination. Y'all sit with what that is for Superman. Okay? I didn't know. But I'm really glad that these little guys decided to channel all of their energy into something powerful. And so I started thinking about a little kid watching Superman and how, he would be Clark Kent doing one thing during the day, and then when things came up, he'd have to step into the phone booth, change up, hope nobody saw him to reveal who he really was, to go out here and do these deeds, and these good deeds, and protect, which is what our veterans do. They protect. They serve and protect. And we all have the ability to serve and protect ourselves and one another. So this is another reason why I say we're all superheroes. Another thing I thought about is interesting how we judge one another, because Lois Lane wouldn't have necessarily found him to be super special and attractive, but she was very, very fascinated with Superman. So they had something to dialogue about and to share, their sense of amazement of Superman. And could you imagine if he actually came out and said to her, "But Lois, I'm Superman." Really? Really? Right? Don't be judging folks, because he was. He is. And so I started thinking about in my own life, how many times do I step in and out of my own phone booth throughout the day, being one being and another being, as opposed to being, just being my authentic self all day long. I'm thinking I could probably trip up on that cape trying to open that door constantly in the phone booth. So, many of you know me a long time, and so you know that my legal name is Donna. And when I became a minister, for years I had been writing down Reverend Divine. And I took that name. And there's a lot that goes on with taking on who you are at this time in your life. People that knew you a certain way and now you're growing and evolving and emerging and you're different, they don't want you to be different. They want you to be the same old you. And they don't like it. And they don't want to accept it. So you get to reinvent yourself and be your own superhero so you can soar with or without your cape. And I started thinking about, when I started ministerial school, I knew I needed to change jobs because I needed to change my work schedule to go to school. So I sat down with my boss and I wanted to see if we could collaborate in a new way of my schedule so that that would work for both of us. And here I'd worked for her for many years. I thought I had her back and that she had my back. Came to find out I was stuck in the phone booth again with yet another thought because she didn't really have my back. The small things I needed, she wasn't able to or wasn't willing to say, yes, we can make that work. So I thought, got to find a new job because my next big picture in life is ministry. And I've got to find a way to do that. So adios to you, and now I find the new job. And I'd worked in ophthalmology for a long time. And ophthalmology in the old boys club is a little more stiff. It's a little more conservative. It's a little less sparkly. Okay? So knowing that when I went to the interview, I knew how to be. And I probably sensed I wasn't going to be that out, open, airy, loud, crazy, vibrant light that I am most of the time. But because it was for the better good of what I was doing, I thought, I know how to do this, and I can do this. So, of course, got the job. I'm working with them a short time. And lo and behold, I find out that the two doctors I work for are very practicing fundamental Catholics. I also find out that the practice manager is a very practicing Jehovah Witness. These are not bad things. They're wonderful things, and I think that they stand in their own light and practice what their spiritual practice is wonderful. But could you imagine how many areas of my life I now get to be closeted in? Yeah. Don't let anyone... Well, they were sort of okay with being Jewish. That's always sort of okay and sort of safe. But to tell them I'm going to ministerial school to be a new thought, metaphysical minister... To tell them that I happen to date women. So, of course, zip it up. Not going to be stepping into that booth for a little while throughout the day. And for the first few years, it didn't bug me too much. I monitored my conversations. I knew when I could and couldn't speak about what. Okay? I had to be very careful of the languaging I used. And having been out in my life for such a long time, being that vibrant spark that I am, I didn't realize it was going to really squelch me and start to work on me and my spirits. So what I started noticing is the phone booth, the door got jammed a lot. It's harder to get in the door and change up my costume. Started hurting my heart. And so I say this because we're talking about keeping it real. We're talking about being authentic. Okay, I've been a minister almost a year now. I go every day to work in a certain time frame as Donna. And some days it really is confusing. And it's been my name for years. But it's been very confusing. Like a dual personality thing going on. Never know what's going to come out of my mouth. And sometimes I'll get a prayer call in the middle of the day, and I sneak back into my office, and I'm Reverend Divine. Pop back up, and someone's calling me by my legal name, and of course I'm responding. So I started thinking about this, and I checked with the corporate Centers for Spiritual Living, and I said, this is my name. I haven't legally changed it. What can we do about that? Well, you know what? We'll keep it on record as your nickname, and when you change it, we'll change it. It'll be good. Went to the bank. Can we have a doing business as name? When you change it, we'll change it. It's all good. So I'm like, the only place I'm comfortable besides here is when I go to Pete's and order my coffee. Your name? Divine. I don't even care if you call me Divina or spell it wrong. It's closer, and I'm good with that. But how many times in your life are you between in and out of your own phone booth from your authenticity of you, where you can't be your bright light and you're allowing circumstances of other people and what makes them comfortable and what makes them feel good be more important than your bright light? I recently said to Reverend Abigail that lately it's been making me sad. Makes me sad. That I chose it, to have this duality thing going on. And what I'm knowing is that it's kind of closing a little part of me, not quite as sparkly. And so I've declared to myself that that's not okay. And I can no longer continue to be that, which means I need to make some more radical changes in my life. Okay, I can do that. And I say that to each and every one of you, because if there's things on your plate right now where you feel that you have to be in a costume to be you and visible and bright versus you, it's stifling your soul. It's stifling your good. It's stifling your health, your bright light, your well-being. How could that be a good thing? And if these little guys created Superman for world peace and justice and doing good deeds, do we have to be somebody different than who we are to be that? I would like to think not. And I think for every person that's got even the slightest little thing that they keep hidden because it makes someone else uncomfortable, how uncomfortable is it making you when you're not being you? Someone's always going to be uncomfortable. Don't let it be you in your life. Keep the phone booth door open wide. You notice we all use cell phones now, so we don't even go in and out of that phone booth that often. And if you like to dress up with capes and stuff, go ahead and do that. I love to do that. I think it's awesome. Do that, but you don't need to do it and be in the phone booth hoping no one will see you. Let them see you. Let them see you sparkle and be your magnificent self. They'll wind up getting used to it, and you'll feel great. And with that, I want to say, just be you. And I want to say one other thing. For those that have served our country for years, thank you. For those that have served our country for years under the don't ask, don't tell, who hid in that phone booth, and it has created great havoc on your soul and your spirit, thank you for serving. And I'm so sorry you had to have that experience. I know quite a few veterans that have had to live that life, that are healing to be who they are. If someone is willing to show up, yeah, I know they always say, don't bring politics, sex into religious dynamics, it gets messy. Well, you know what? Or messier. We're going to make it really messy. If somebody was willing to serve their country and protect and serve, what the heck do you care what they wear and who they dance around with? They suited up, they showed up and said yes. So be thankful that they are and that they continue to. So let's take a moment just to go inside. Put your cape on, take your cape off, whatever feels right, and let's pray. Let's pray to know that we are one part of that magnificent, glorious spirit that I choose to call God, Goddess, universe, the voice of God, whatever that is for you. We're part of that. We are all interconnected, magnificent spirits here, doing this earth walk together. We are community. We are family. Share with one another your magnificence and your glory. Let others share theirs with you. And be all that you can be. And as you want to reinvent yourself and reinvent yourself to the next evolution of your greatness, do it with your head up high and your heart filled with joy and love, allowing that possibility to take place. And give thanks for your willingness to step into your light and brightness and enthusiasm and creativity. Be thankful that others are supporting you and you're supporting them in being who you are and keeping it real. And the parts of you that feel afraid will melt away, because this community and this community beyond and beyond supports you, holds you, and raises you up so that you are safe to do just that. I'm giving great thanks to know that communities like this allow us to all rise up, raise up, and praise ourselves for our glory and our greatness and our just amazing beingnesses. We are our own superhero. We are our own Superman, Superwoman. We are that and more. See each other in that state of beingness. Giving thanks and knowing that it is possible, it is probable, it is happening right here and right now. I let it go. Letting God do what God needs to do to allow this to be open and available fully and richly. I don't need to think about it, because I know, as I've spoken my word to the action of law, it is already done. It is done. And if any of this works for you, resembles what you're feeling or thinking, resonates with you on any level, please anchor it with me by saying, and so it is.